There's good debt and there's bad debt, so you go into the financial literacy side of things, and this is part of what we do. We're one of the few schools in the country that I know of that teach people the financial literacy side, because a lot of these systems, they don't make any sense unless you understand money and how money moves through our system. People don't understand income levels. The median income in the United States last year was $50,000. If you made $88,000 a year last year, you make more money than 75% of the world. At $150,000 a year, you make more money than 90% of the planet. Well, where are you getting those jobs? Because only 10% of people make that money. It's a very, very small percentage of what's out there to earn that kind of income.
Yeah.
You're going to school so that you can earn that kind of income.
Exactly.
So it becomes a great debt if you are using the money to develop a skill set that's going to allow you to earn in the future.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another series brought to you by Nova Southeastern University, where we help explain some of the changing landscapes that may be impacting higher education as we know it. So today we are joined with John LaSota, who is one of NSU's very own experts on financial aid and student loans, with over 11 years of experience here at the university. And we're going to be talking about some of the changes to the financial landscape regarding grants, student loans, repayments, and all of the things that you may need to know as a current shark, or even for some of our potential sharks. So my name is Bryan Roberts, and I will be moderating the series for you today. And John, we're so glad to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. So John, tell us first, what is changing? We hear that word a lot right now, that things may be changing, and there's a lot of misconceptions with it. So tell us exactly what is changing, what's not changing.
Okay. Well, first let's go back to where we are. To know where you're going, you got to know where you are first, right? So currently, and this extends to current students that are actually in their programs right now. At the moment, every student gets for the undergraduate, which is your bachelor's degrees, you get dependent students who live with their folks and their folks still claim on their taxes get up to $31,500 in what we call Stafford loans, which are subsidized and unsubsidized loans. For independent students, which are students that no longer live at home, or at least they're not being claimed by their parents, they get up to $57,500. Okay. Now, for those undergraduate students, nothing is changing at all. That stays the same.
Wow, okay.
Okay. So for undergraduates, the only thing that does change is there is what they call the Parent Plus loan. Now, that is a loan that parents take out for their kids to go to school. Right now, there's not really a limit on what they could borrow with that. They are changing that so that each parent can only take out, and it's not each parent, it's both parents combined, can only take out a maximum of $65,000 per student and $20,000 per year per student. Okay, now, it's actually a good change. Those Parent Plus loans, they don't have as favorable repayment terms as all the other loans do.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more expensive. And generally, when you're borrowing on the Parent Plus loan, you might be towards the higher ends of the tuition spectrum of what the costs are. And so you have to really think about if that's the right move for you if you're taking out those loans. Yeah. So the fact that they've restricted it is actually a good thing, because you still have plenty of money. But it gets you out of the trouble of taking out more than you should in a specific loan type that's expensive to repay.
Absolutely.
So that's on the undergraduate side.
Okay.
There's no changes. Most of the changes have to do with graduate school programs.
Okay.
At the moment, you get up to $138,500 in unsubsidized loans for master's degree programs. Then for professional programs, you get up to $224,000 in unsubsidized loans. Then there's also what we call the Graduate Plus loan. Now, the Graduate Plus loan, you could borrow up to the cost of attendance, and there's no limit on how much you could borrow.
Okay.
Now, what that means, the cost of attendance is not just your books and your tuition. It is those things, but it's also your living expenses, your rent, your car payments, your health insurance payments, all your eating, because there's a lot of programs that you cannot work while you're going to school.
Yeah, it becomes your occupation, really, to be a student.
Exactly. So now that is up to maximum, and what schools will do is they'll look at the averages for apartments in the area, and the schools set those rates. So between the unsubsidized loans, what they do is they'll subtract the unsubsidized loan from that cost of attendance, and whatever's left over you get in the Graduate Plus loan. Now, it covers your living expenses, and it makes it so that students can afford to pay for school, but it doesn't mean that they should be borrowing that maximum amount.
Yeah.
And with the Graduate Plus loan, anytime we see somebody who gets into real trouble with their student loans, where they borrowed way more than they should have for the degree that they're getting, it's almost always in that Graduate Plus loan. Now, the differentiation between the 138.5 and the 224, the 224 is specifically for professional degrees.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot going on right now, especially with the changes. What is a professional degree?
Yeah, and we'll definitely get to that one. I know that that's a whole section to unpack.
Okay,
yeah.
so we'll wait for that.
Yeah,
then.
we'll wait for the
good.
professional. Yeah.
So now, what is changing with those programs, right, is for a master's degree, for a graduate program, where 138.5 was the limit, it is now going down to $100,000, and you can only get $20,500 per year. Okay, so then on the professional degrees where you get 224, you get up to $200,000, and you can only get $50,000 per year, and that Graduate Plus loan is completely going away. So you'll no longer have access to that money. So now, when we talk about the limits, though, your undergraduate limit now, that $57,500, does not go into the Graduate Plus loan, the graduate level loans, or the professional level loans. So what this winds up doing is, whereas before 138.5 was your maximum limit, including those undergraduate loans, or 224 for a professional school, including the undergraduate loans. Now that's no longer the case. The $100,000 is specifically for a master's degree. So if you are a student borrower who needed to borrow the money for undergraduate, and then you borrow money again for your master's, the aggregate limit is actually 157.5, and they're actually giving you more money.
Because it creates a separate pot for that continued education.
Exactly. And the same thing goes for a professional school, whereas if $200,000 is the limit for the professional school, that's for professional school itself. It does not include the $57,500.
Wow.
So what it does is it effectively, for people who are on the lower end of the income spectrum, who need a little bit more help for their undergraduate years, they're actually getting more money.
Yeah, wow.
For the student on the unsubsidized loans, for the students that are getting money just for the advanced, for your higher degrees, they're getting slightly less, but again, it's more money if you borrowed for undergraduate. Now that Graduate Plus loan, losing that does make it tight, because most schools for those higher degrees, $50,000 a year at a professional school still isn't going to cover the tuition.
Yeah.
So there's changes that have to be made there. Then, how do you eat?
Yeah.
Now, for a lot of programs, it does not really affect you, because there are a lot of students that are getting their master's degree after work. So they're going to work, they're earning their paycheck, they're paying all their normal bills, they're living in their situation, and then they're going to school at night.
Yeah.
Those students, there isn't a lot of change. They're going to be able to pay the bills, but they're not going to have access to the extra money that gets them into trouble.
Yeah.
Because 90% of people don't spend money properly.
Yeah.
So they'll go and take the maximum money that they don't need, and they'll go buy a BMW.
Right.
instead of using it for what the purpose is.
For what the purpose
right.
is.
Now, it's the other for the professional students. If you're a doctor, if you're going to school to be a doctor, and all of your loans are paying for the tuition, how do you pay your rent?
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that we have to start working on.
And I think that that's a really good segue. And I definitely think that, especially like you mentioned, for professional degrees, those ones who are in school, like they have clinical hours, they have rotations, and they can't necessarily keep a full-time, sustaining job while they're there. There's always that, fine line that has to be walked with, hey, how much am I taking to support my living versus how much, am I going to be able to now repay, things of that nature. So we'll definitely touch on that in a second. But I want to make sure that from all the information, because you gave us a lot of good info, from all the good information that you've given us, I want to break it down kind of in finite, small things for people. So are you saying that loans are not going away?
No, loans are not going away. If you're going to school for your bachelor's degree, loans don't change for you at all, really. It winds up being on the master's level that they are not going away. They are changing. You are getting limited in the access to the amount of money you're able to get, and that's also going to have to change how people approach going to school, what the purpose of their going to school is for. So you really want to have to get that degree, and that degree really has to have a job on the other side of the degree. Yeah.
And you're also saying that the limits as far as from your undergraduate and for graduate and or professional, that those are now separate as they are looked at in pots.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
And when would someone, if these changes or when these changes go into effect, when does that happen? Is that something we need to prepare for right now for the new year, January 1st, or when does that happen?
So all the changes go into effect July 1st, 2026. There are some provisions on the repayment side that hit later. But July 1st, 2026, if you are a brand new borrower, meaning you are not in your program and you are just starting your program after July 1st of 2026, then the changes will affect you. If you are currently in your program, you have until you finish your program or 3 years from that July 1st, 2026 date to finish. And then you are grandfathered into the same system that we have right now. Oh. So if you are in your program now, you're gonna have plenty of money.
Yeah.
You make sure you're making the right arrangements, but the biggest thing for you is to make sure that you finish. Okay, you want to get that degree. What you don't want is to, now pace has always been an issue. You have to take a certain amount of classes in a certain amount of time. So if they say that a master's degree takes 3 years, you can't take 7 years to get it. You never could, or you wouldn't get all your money. Now it's certainly the case that you want to make sure that you finish within that 3 years so that you are able to fund your education, because the worst thing to happen, it would be to go beyond the point where you're going to get the money that you need, and the very last year right before you finish, your funds are cut off, and then you can't finish. Yeah. So the onus right now is, if you're in your program, you're going to be okay. Just make sure you finish. If you are considering going to graduate school, try to get your courses started before that July 1st, 2026 date. So really by the summer term, you want to have your classes started, and then you'll still be grandfathered into the system. For students starting next year and beyond, if you're undergraduate, it's the same as it always was. In your graduate school, this is where you have to really decide, going on to graduate school, what is the job on the other side of this degree? How much does that job pay? And then you have to really think, okay, well, if this job pays me $100,000 a year on average, well, I can only afford to pay 10 to 15% of that salary to repay my loans. So I can only afford to borrow this much to get through school.
Yeah, and we know that that's your expert hat coming into play there when it comes to repaying with the loans. But we also want to make sure, right, that with a lot of these changes, I think there's this stigma even now with this generation that debt is inherently all bad, right? And while no one wants to owe or have debt, I think that it may be important as well to share with the viewers that, like, if you're investing in your education, right? And sure, education is a solid investment. So what could that possibly mean in that regard? Like with, hey, I'm borrowing funds, and yes, I'm sure, everyone hopes for that great job at the end of the tunnel, right? But what does that mean? Because I know we don't want our viewers to be afraid to now enroll with any different changes.
Well, there's good debt and there's bad debt. So you go into the financial literacy side of things, and this is part of what we do. We're one of the few schools in the country that I know of, especially at the graduate level, that teach people the financial literacy side, because a lot of these systems, they don't make any sense unless you understand money and how money moves through our system, right? So there's good debt and there's bad debt, right? A car is not a good debt. Car is a bad debt. You buy a car, you're borrowing money to buy a car, you're paying a lot of money for that car, and it's losing value every time you drive it. As soon as it's off the lot, you lose 25%. So cars are actually a bad debt, even though that loan actually boosts your credit score and actually makes you more credit worthy as long as you're paying all the time. Your mortgage is a good debt. You have to pay the rent anyway. If you own the house, you're saving money a few ways. So you're effectively, instead of renting the place from a landlord, you're renting the house from a bank, but you get to keep it at the end. These are good debts. They make your wealth go up. Now, student loans are interesting, because student loans while you're in school, they're great debt. When you're after school, because you've already gotten what you need from it, they're not such great debt.
So you said something key there. You said while you're in school, it's great debt, right? It could be considered great. Why is that? And maybe compare it to other loans that you could make, maybe private loans, or even the loan that's going away, the Parent Plus. Why are student loans specifically? Why would that be a good?
It's specifically because of the value add from your degree, right? So now, is it a good debt or a bad debt for you? What are the two reasons why you go to school? The reason why you go to college, the whole reason for higher education, is to broaden your horizons, expose yourself to new ideas, challenge your old ideas, really, really steelman yourself so that you know about the world, you understand about the world, and when somebody argues with you about what you believe, you actually know what to say and why you believe what you believe, right? Now, that is not good debt. That's a great part of education. It's an important part of education, but you're not borrowing money for that side of things. You are borrowing money to develop a skill set that you can take into the world and make some money on. That's the whole point. Now, we live in a value-based system. If I want something from you, I have to give you something that you find valuable for you to give it to me.
Absolutely.
And everything we do in society is based on that.
Yeah.
The more difficult your skill set is to replicate, the higher you're going to get paid because you're producing a value that other people can't produce. Minimum wage jobs make minimum wage because anybody can do it. Doctors, there are only 2 general practitioners for every 1,000 citizens. There aren't enough. And it's a very long training period. So not even if you have the IQ to be able to be a doctor, the industriousness, the ability to stay on task and do the work when the work gets hard, that's the part that people don't have.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to fill that skill set.
Yeah.
Right? Now, hopefully you're going to school and you're developing a skill set that pays you a lot of money. Now, it comes down to income levels. People don't understand income levels. The median income in the United States last year was $50,000. That's right in the middle. That means half of working Americans made more, half of Americans made less. If you made $88,000 a year last year, you make more money than 75% of the world. Wow. At $150,000 a year, you make more money than 90% of the planet. Well, where are you getting those jobs? Because only 10% of people make that money. And that's 10% of working people. There aren't, we only have 39% of Americans work full time. So it's a very, very small percentage of what's out there to earn that kind of income.
Yeah.
You're going to school so that you can earn that kind of income.
Exactly.
So it becomes a great debt if you are using the money to develop a skill set that's going to allow you to earn in the future.
Absolutely.
If you are using that money to take for a degree that there's no job on the other side, then it's a terrible debt and you're crippling yourself financially for the rest of your life. And that is a big reason why these changes are being made. We have to start because Chase Manhattan Bank, for instance, does not give student loans. There's no collateral. If you don't repay your student loan, there's nothing they can do to force it back.
Yeah.
Right? For the federal loans, there's no underwriting. So it doesn't matter what your degree you're going for. It doesn't matter. You get the money because of certain parameters that you fit into.
Yeah.
It is up to the individual now to make sure that what they are borrowing actually accomplishes the end goal.
The end goal.
And that's the potential to earn.
Yeah.
So but what I tell my doctors all the time, because you'll see doctors that, from our school, you'll see doctors that owe $400,000 or $500,000. That's a house. That's a lot of money. And rightfully so, they're nervous about that. A lot of students, most students on the higher degree fields, they've never worked. They went right from high school. They were high achievers in high school, they're high achievers at undergraduate, then they're high achievers in their graduate school, but they've not been in the real world working and earning paychecks and seeing what that means, right? So they're really nervous about those debts.
Yeah.
But when you're making $170,000 to start, and then in a couple of years, your salary is going to explode to over $400,000 and you're in that 1%.
Yeah. Well,
you would not have been able to make that money unless you did borrow the student loans.
Unless you did borrow it.
Right. So borrow the money because it's going to make your life better.
Yeah.
In multiple ways. The first part where you culture yourself, and the second part where you can earn.
Earnings. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're cultured and you can earn, you're the king of the world.
Yeah.
Right.
You got it. Yeah.
Just you got to be smart about how you fund it.
Exactly. So that's good. And I know that you mentioned, that's one of the positive parts of the changes that it's making sure that people are not necessarily. I'll say it's not as easy to get into some of the unnecessary crippling portions of the debt. It kind of lets parameters, but why now? Like why? And of course you said July 1st will be when some of the things when some of the implementations, So you said July 1st is when you said some of the implementations will take place, and there's some revisions that may take a little place after, but why now? What is exactly driving this? Why are we even talking about student loans and changes?
Okay, so there are 3 driving forces behind it. The first is a financial issue. The second is a systematic issue, how it's structured. And the third is completely political. Now, the third is why it got done now. So our last election, every county in the country moved to the right. Now, the Republican Party won the popular vote. This is the first time those things have happened in over 25 years. So they felt the onus to get something passing, to get something pushed through that is a right-leaning bill. Now, when I say the entire, every county in the country moved right, what does that mean? It doesn't mean everybody became Republican. It just means they were moving away from the left way of thinking about things. Okay, so now, first you have to understand that we talk about inflation, right? Do you know why Motel 6 is called Motel 6?
Why?
In 1962, when the company came out, it was $6 a room. That room averages $80 a night.
Wow.
Did the room get 13 times bigger?
No.
Did the room get 13 times nicer?
Probably not.
No. Your dollar is worth 13 times less than it was in 1962.
Wow.
Right? Now, that's all from inflation. Inflation is always, the only place inflation comes from is when the government prints money that they don't have to pay for programs that they can't afford. So the government puts money into the system, and what happens, there's more money in the system than there are goods to buy. So now if I like this cup a lot, you like that cup a lot,
Yeah.
which one of us is going to get the cup?
The highest bidder, I guess.
The person is willing to pay more,
Yeah.
right? So when a bunch of money is pumped in the system, and now all of a sudden you and I just have money, and we want that cup, what happens to the price of that cup?
It goes up.
It goes up automatically. That's inflation, okay? Now, the student loan system is a government program, right? Anytime the government subsidizes something, the costs go up because the person selling it can charge more because as the saying goes, you spend your money efficiently, you spend other people's money inefficiently. So when we're talking about government funding, the government doesn't have money. They take it from taxpayers. So they are always spending money inefficiently, right? Now, if I give you a student loan, is that your money? No, it's not. It comes from somebody else.
Yeah.
So you are going to spend that money inefficiently.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to you what the tuition is, it doesn't matter to you what the tuition went up because you don't realize what you're paying until after you're done and the bill comes due. And because most students, you're 18 years old, you have your dreams, but you don't have the financial backing of that, of what it is to live in the real world. So you're making big lifetime decisions at a time when you're not prepared to do that. And because you're not paying the cost right now, it's a delayed cost. Those costs can keep going up and up. So if we look at what inflation is, right? So since 1980, inflation, general inflation in the overall economy is up 285%. Inflation in college tuition since 1980 is up 1,246%.
Wow.
Which means college tuition has gone up by 6 times more than general inflation.
It's outpacing it.
Now, there is a lot of nonsense in that because you have to understand most of the figures that you get when you look at stuff that they judge by isn't real. For instance, when we talk about inflation, when we talk about the prices going up, right? In a good year, you have 2% inflation every single year, which means the prices go up every single year. How do they compensate us with that? Well, your general cost of living raise when you're working is 3% every year. So the prices go up by 2%, but guess what? It's okay because everybody gets a raise to cover the cost, right? Well, you know what? In that 285%, what do they not count?
What?
They don't count housing, they don't count energy, and they don't count food because those are the 3 most volatile things.
Yeah.
What are the 3 things that are most important to your paycheck, to your bottom line when you're living in the real world? Your rent, your food,
Yeah.
and energy. The price of energy runs through every single thing in the economy. You can't get a hamburger without a truck bringing all the components to make that hamburger, right? So energy costs all that. So when we say inflation is 285%, but tuition is 1,246%. Well, the average price of a house in 1982 was $40,000. The average price of a house now is $400,000. That is a 900% increase. So is inflation up 285 or is it up considerably more than that?
Yeah.
They're not really being honest. Now, universities are enormous organizations. For almost any business, payroll is your biggest expense for most businesses, right? Well, in order to keep a university function, not only do you have an enormous amount of people working there, but you also have facilities you have to upkeep.
Yeah.
So when the average prices go up for a giant organization who have to give everybody their 3% raise every year, those increases are exponential.
Yeah.
They hit differently. So while as much as the increases of tuition have been incredibly high compared to what normal inflation is, it's not really what they say that it is. But even so, the cost keeps going up and up.
So we're having an amazing dialogue right now, and I think that it's important, again, for our viewers to understand that NSU is trying to pave the way, lead the way, and making sure that our students are prepared, that potential parents and families, that they're getting as much insight as they can to best prepare and kind of map out their future, whether it be here at NSU or wherever they're doing their continuing education. But shameless plug for all of our programs here at NSU. Going back on that, what are things that families can start doing now, or even those who are seeking to start an education at NSU? What can they start doing now? What are maybe some sites of reference? What are some maybe deadlines that they need to be looking forward to? What can we start doing now to prepare?
Okay, the very first thing that you need to do is like what is it that you want to go to school for, right? What is the goal?
Yeah.
What is the job on that? Can you like, for instance, if you're a nurse or an engineer, you don't need to you don't need a master's degree. You can be a nurse or an engineer and make good money right out of your undergraduate. So whereas a lot of other degrees, an undergraduate isn't going to be enough. You have to get that master's in order to really make money in the field. Well, what does that look like for you? That you have to have a very, very clear idea of what that looks like. Now we have advisors, we have admissions advisors that counsel students and go over all of this information so they have a clear path, so they know exactly what it is that they have to step up and do. Now you want to make sure no matter what institution you're going to, you understand the full cost of that institution. Can you live at home while you're going to school? Do you have to live on campus? What are the costs per room? Can you get a roommate to lessen your costs? What's the meal plan charge? You want to have all that. It's not just your tuition. You got to know what your tuition is and the fees, because every university has fees that we have to charge to pay for all the facilities and things like that. So you want to make sure you are really clear on what the cost is, and the overall cost, and then what the end goal is.
Yeah.
Undergraduate, you have to fill out that FAFSA. You do that on studentaid.gov. Studentaid.gov is your main source for the government's going to set the rules. All of that is listed on studentaid.gov.
Okay.
On studentaid.gov, the one thing I will say though, the reason why I know the student loan repayment side as well as I do is because years ago, before our program started really kicking up, I had nothing to do but look at all the links. You have to look at all the links. Student aid does not make it easy to find information.
Okay, so you have to be committed to looking and researching
Correct.
through what's on the site. But studentaid.gov is the
main
site where they
source.
can find it.
Correct. And now that's for government funding for your higher education for everybody. Now, NSU. Our NSU website has, our financial aid website in particular, has a ton of information. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about here today with the changes with the One Big Beautiful Bill, those still aren't posted on studentaid.gov because they're not officially on the books. They are proposals. Interesting, they pass a law and then they're still deciding what the law means, right? So those changes are proposed, but they're not set in stone, so they're not going to appear on that. Now, we get our information from the National Association of Financial Aid Administrators, right? And we post a lot of information on our student aid website on the financial aid page, so you can look at all of that information. We also post all the tuition information for each one of our programs. So you can go on the NSU website and find out most of what you need in order to have the information that you want to plot everything out. We also have a scholarship page where it shows the grants and scholarships that we offer. It has a system where you put your information in and they will match you up with scholarships that you can get from our university.
Wow, okay.
So we have a really comprehensive system to actually give you all that information, whether it's through studentaid.gov or through our particular website.
Oh, awesome. So it sounds like NSU's website, especially on the financial aid side, it provides a lot of the resources and kind of the details out a lot of the guidance that we receive. Thanks for listening to the Debt Squad podcast by NSU. If today's episode made you realize that you have a couple more questions or you're looking for more information, please understand that you are not alone. NSU is committed to helping its families and students navigate all of these changes and successfully accomplishing their goals in their academic careers. If you want more information, we encourage you to visit NSU's website for resources and updates. And also, please make sure that you subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss any of the upcoming breakdowns that we have regarding this bill and others that may be like it. Thank you again for listening and hope to see you at our next episode.